All right, it is Tuesday, and Tyrannical Week is over. It's Fortified Week, which is actually a little bit scarier on a new tank. You know, Tyrannical Week, you know when all the big hits are coming. I'm actually going to open in Prot. You know when all the big hits are coming in Tyrannical Week, and you can use a big defensive. But Fortified Week's the trash is all big hits, and that's the majority of the dungeon for the tank. Really, Dragon Games equipment again, huh? Okay. We're gonna be taking this. Huge. We're wearing last season one piece. So we're just gonna replace it with new season one piece and about 60 eye level gain. That's amazing. What was that? A chest, right? Okay, yeah, this week I'd like to focus, I might even tier this champion shoulder to get 2-piece. The 2-piece comes with Spending Rage, has a chance to cause your next shield slam to consume your bleeds on the target, dealing damage, and reducing your damage taken by 10% for 5 seconds. That has a pretty good uptime. 10% DR is something I want. That sounds excellent. This week, the weekly quest is time walking, which means we'll get a free normal piece of loot. 493, not crazy on a main character, but if you're gearing up a new character, it goes very well to pair with our dungeon week last week and our bullion we're gonna get. This character's probably gonna be doing a lot of crest farming. I have some worms crests from the twos we did. I need even more, but I surprisingly I need like Drake's crests, which are from normal raid and mythic zeros, or maybe even heroics. I don't quite remember. I don't know where I'm going. I don't quite remember what the change was for Drake's crests. It's either M0s or heroic dungeons. If it's M0s, I don't really want to do M0s again. I did some M0s last week. Hello? I think we have 5 catalyst charges. We have 4. We have 4. And I'll get a hero piece. I don't know if I can get 2k this week. That's probably not happening, but I'll get a hero piece next week. I think 1 champion shoulder for 10% DR is fine. I'm gonna run this. I'm gonna do this. And now you'll see I have 3 more, right? So, oh, we're fine actually. I can get all hero gear. I can get like hero gloves, a hero head, and hero pants, and then I can trade this hero shoulder later. We're doing great. We can have all of our pieces tiered. So that's probably what we're looking at. What key did we end up with? Uldaman. 4 Uldaman fortified. Not the worst. Uldaman's pretty terrible tyrannical because it has 5 bosses. It's also afflicted, which we can help nothing with, but we really can't on our demon hunter either. So not really different than our main. Like paladins, monks, maybe druids, if they can take their dispel. I think their dispel is kind of an annoying place. And raging, which is going to be annoying, but kind of luckily. We also don't have that much CC on warrior, you know? Shockwave and intimidating shout is like our big AoE CC, and then we have Stormbolt. So if the mobs become immune to CC, I don't really care. So I think this could be a good week for our warrior. And we'll probably be stepping into some keys in a little bit. Probably after we get our bullions, actually. I think we're gonna go do that.
Not too much to report here. Did a couple different wings of LFR. Managed to pull out some tier gloves. Until finally we got to Taros, and Taros ended up dropping me my bullion, and it was time to move on to other stuff. Now, other stuff consisted of lots of crest farming, and unfortunately, to move both my weapon and shield along required some Drake's crests that I won't get to until, like, pretty late in the week. Starting with 2s being previous season's 12s, they drop Worm's Crest. So any keys that I would jump in would just be dropping Worm's Crest, and that's basically what I did. Got a pug together and jumped into a 4 Uldaman. This dungeon, there was really not that much to note, actually. It was pretty smooth. I guess I'll just go through and highlight a couple things I noticed on Warrior. First up is the room where you pull these Refi Custodians. These guys can get pretty nasty on Fortified. They have this ramping enrage that goes away when you stun them and they bite you with a terrible bleed. Now, I'm a Dark Iron Dwarf, so I can clear the bleeds with my racial, but also Shockwave, which is available very often, can clear both of their stacking enrage. A thing in several dungeons, anytime you pull just a bunch of casters together, just hit Spell Reflect on CD. Chances are one of them will hit you in Unfortified week, and some of these keys, these Spell Reflects, were doing like significant portions of my damage on trash. Speaking of Spell Reflect, the third boss is another great opportunity. Whenever Searing Clap goes out, you can see I don't get the dot, and I actually send all that damage back into him. Other than that, key went smooth. I even pulled a champion helmet out of the box. The priest and the monk basically carried the group, and it was on to the next key. Of course, not before acquiring my 4-piece with the head that I had just gotten from Uldaman. The Uldaman dropped me a Azure Vault. I dropped it back down to a 4, and I mean, come on, Azure Vault? A 4 Azure Vault? What could be easier? Ah, shit, here we go. Oh no. Damn, okay. Alright, I mean, it's fine. Let's run it back. Let me go, okay, so let me figure out how I'm gonna set up this pull, and the healer just runs in and dies. And then, let me just spare you the details. We're all gonna die, and the healer's gonna go ahead and call me some slurs in chat. So let's run it back on the 3. How about that? You see, what's interesting about doing these keys or making a new character is that when you've done 11s, and 11s are like decently tough, but really not that bad. You're timing most of your 11s on your main character, and people come and they ask you when you want Lust in your 3 Azure Vault. You think it's going to be fine. They ask if I'm pulling all the Lashers. I say I'm pulling all the Lashers. I want Lust. Let's see what happens. See, right about now, I'd be waiting for the Lust. I'm going to go ahead and send my challenging shout so everything's silenced. I'm going to pull it all in. Try to use as much CC as I can. People are starting to die. Nobody's interrupting. I'm not a demon hunter. We don't have Lust. The mage is dead. That was our Lust. Let's see what the mage has to say for themselves. Ripped aggro, huh? Terry, check the tapes. If you're a new tank in lower keys, you're probably good to just ignore chat. Probably until you get to like 8 keys or something. That's about the time people start to make some kind of sense, but before then, don't really worry about it. Rest of the key went off with no problems. Time to get into another key. My key turned into a 4, or a Brackenhide that I lowered to a 4. This was really nothing special. The people who joined the group were pretty stacked. They did huge damage. Literally nothing went wrong. Didn't even fail to skip. Didn't get any loot. On to the next key. Psych, we're not on to the next key. So at this point, several days in the week has passed. This was actually a super busy week for Blizzard players. Diablo 4 season released, and it was actually pretty good. Played a bunch of that. Pandaria Time Running released, played a bunch of that. Cataclysm Classic released, didn't play any of that. But I actually just forgot to do some of the stuff that I wanted to in the beginning of the week. So I went back and I did the dungeons for the Time Walking quest. The box gave me boots, which were not an upgrade. And then I remembered that I still needed Drake's crests if I wanted to upgrade my shield and my weapon. Luckily, I realized that the Empower events actually give Drake's crests from the little caches you get, so I hit the soup, and then I hit one of the hunts. And with that, I was able to get my shield and my weapon upgraded with the Worm's Crest that I had been collecting the last 2 weeks. On Sunday, I realized that due to all my other gaming, I hadn't gotten a nice big vault like I wanted to for the Warriors, so I was going to try to push my 5 up to an 8 and then do the 8. Now, lucky for me, that strategy paid off quite well. You might have noticed in the queue finder when I picked up that group, it was a stacked 3-stack. They were huge. And yeah, I mean, they basically just carry me throughout this dungeon. All I have to do is do the bare minimum of staying alive, and they're going to go ahead and slam DPS for me. On top of that, I actually got an item. I got an upgrade on boots with speed. Really hard to complain about that. Unfortunately, the key we rolled ended up being an 8 Halls of Infusion, which I am not excited for. Now, usually I don't like to take a 4 stack in my key because that kind of just means it's their key now and I'm the passenger. But it was Sunday and I was desperate, so, I mean, I went ahead and did it. And I mean, again, it was hard to go wrong. They had way too much eye level for this key. They were clearly just also getting their weekly box. This warrior slammed every single pull, and honestly, I'm kind of surprised. I thought halls would be a little bit tougher, but there was a couple pulls that were a little bit difficult. But for the most part, I actually feel like the warrior did pretty well in here. Particularly on Fortified Week on this last mini-boss before the final boss, this Inundate casts very often, like extremely often, and on high keys, my Demon Hunter actually gets trucked super hard. But Warrior has Spell Reflect for every other Inundate. Now, Blizzard was smart enough to not make it actually reflect the damage and do damage, but it just completely nullifies the damage that you take, which is incredible as the keys get higher. And with that, I'm going to be finishing up the final boss and the second episode of this Warrior Keystone Hero series. We're going to be finishing the week out at 1409. We have an 8 box, so that means a myth item on Tuesday. Super excited to see what that is. Of course, like I said, I did less keys than I wanted to, so hopefully next week I can make up for that, and I'm kind of excited to try Spell Reflect out on some of these tyrannical bosses. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I hope to have more coming soon, and I really appreciate you guys watching. It means a lot to me. Peace out.